I had to start early because I had actually got y'all information. I want to note this before I even get involved. Honestly, I wanted to say how ironic is it that they're saying they found a lot of evidence within the car of the guy who's claiming that his mental is not there. Remember, you got to keep that in mind when you're being objective. This guy doesn't even want to stay in trial. He did make a decision to do that, but I told you that was a disadvantage against him. Now we're hearing that they found a ton of evidence within his vehicle, which I really don't know what to say, except that it sounds weird. And if this doesn't sound weird to you, I don't know what actually would. Because, so this guy claims he's crazy, and they find all the evidence revolving everyone around him. Think strategically. If this is a suspect, why would all the evidence be around him, especially being that his mental is not there? Now, of course, they said they found a weapon. That's understandable if he was a shooter. But let's think about this logically. How is it that you check his grandma's car and she's just now noticing all this evidence is there? Now, I'm not saying, again, that these guys are wrong for it, but I'm saying it sounds like someone's making up for lost times. We already found you didn't preserve evidence correctly. And now it's getting to the point where you're trying to claim that this individual is responsible for a bunch of evidence you now found. I'm not buying it. Let alone with the evidence I have surrounding the situation and documents released, even though you're calling them fake. I told you from the very start, go back to the first videos, check them out, that when you put out false information or false information such as a fake certificate's allowed to be put out, you're actually telling on yourself in multiple ways to a larger degree than you ever imagined. Now, when we start getting into the productions today, because this wasn't even planned, I read it, I seen it, I laughed. Because everything that I told you is going to happen is happening. Especially with the cover-ups, the inconsistent information, and especially without a preserved evidence scene. You let guys run down on the scene on Tentacion's car. So if we're going to talk about evidence found in someone's car, you first need to address why you allowed the crime scene to be tampered with and tainted by these professionals in a professional workplace. A lot of it makes no sense. And as I start going through it today, and especially with what I hit you guys with later, everything's going to start falling into place. That's what I'm trying to say. Listen, I don't care what evidence they found with 4 suspects. Don't focus on that. I'm telling you, watch it, see what they say, but I promise you that is not the focus. The focus is going to be elsewhere when you actually see what's going on. See, the key evidence is not what they tell you, it's what they don't tell you. And that's what the thing's going to be. You got to understand it's going to get a bit deeper than that. This is way deeper than that. You see, this is a situation where someone was allowed to, let's say, slip through the cracks. They realized a mistake because they were sitting out there running down, trying to chase down black men once again, as they do best. But they missed the propaganda that was behind it because they were so focused on finding someone to blame that they missed evidence that would actually point towards who's the culprits, let alone a mastermind. So you're still focused on these 4 men. I could guarantee you the mastermind's just simply sitting over a chessboard, picking out loopholes they may have made and plugging them. Now, one of the alleged loopholes could be why Trayvon Newsom lawyered up so fast. That could be fixing a loophole. He's lawyered up. Because it doesn't matter what you find in Micheal Boatwright's car. Did you check any of these men's hands for gunpowder residue? Probably not. You probably just rush cuffs on them and put them in the interrogation room, as you dummies do. I'm trying to sit here and help you realize that your investigation technique is what ruined the case. It's not that you didn't do what you should have done. It's when you did it. How long does it take? We have a show called 48 Hours, and you guys are that dull and dumb to realize you missed most of the evidence. Doesn't matter what they found in a car. It's been 48 hours. Listen, they could find everyone's gun in the car, and if there's no fingerprints on it, you messed up. Or even if you say you find fingerprints, you're like, oh, such and such was holding this. We can look at it easily to see if it's been tampered with. Again, you didn't answer why there was no forensic team on the scene, no pictures. And there was only 2 yellow tags. That's stupid. What kind of evidence is 2 yellow tags going to preserve? Think about it. You found the casings, good. You still didn't find the people that you interrogated when the day it first happened. You're missing that, right? You still didn't find out a motive, even though we probably discussed it here and you guys are watching us and trying to think of a motive. And you don't want to admit you were wrong. That's part of the problem. See, pride of these investigators is going to ruin a perfectly good case that could have been solved. That's just a means of it. That's just a fact. It's going to ruin it. And you're slowly going to see how it's going to ruin it. Especially when I start dropping these productions of things that I know they haven't mentioned for a fact. I can assure you they haven't mentioned. Because I've been observing it in a special way. Even reading behind the scene documents that may lead to ulterior motives of why all of this was going on in the first place. You guys are just so slow and behind. And you're getting paid to be behind. You're getting paid to lack at your job. You guys are not only slow on your job, you're very bad at it. If this is the best you can give us, oh, everything's in his grandma's car. And I guess when we check them and one of your fingerprints is on them, you're going to say, oh, I picked it up, put it in the bag. Really? You didn't use gloves? Even if it doesn't have your fingerprints on it, now you're just finding it weeks and weeks later. You guys are terrible. I mean, you're terrible. If I was someone's boss, you would be getting reprimanded left and right. I'd have you guys running laps around the building in the precinct because you failed to do what you were supposed to do. For real. You'd be running some laps because that's what we used to get when we mess up in what we were doing in sports. You have to get sporty. You're too slow. See, that is why it should have been moved to the federal level, because you guys are terrible at local investigations. I mean, I did an investigation, so I know the names of every agent who's on the case. I can go by names who didn't do their job. But did I? No, I didn't do that. I can go down by names on who the forensic team, on who to contact and what they're not doing. But I didn't do that, did I? I'm giving you leeway. So I'm telling you, when you start releasing things from here on, be smarter about it. Don't release, oh, we found this, we found evidence in his grandma's car. What? Because he claimed he was mentally incapable of taking the case? Is that why? Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds good. But here's the one thing you didn't consider. You don't have the forensics surrounding the area. And even if you say you're keeping that under wraps, which I know cannot be the case, being that now you're bragging about finding evidence in a man's car, you would have been bragging. Don't you get that? So the moment these men started claiming this and that, you would have been bragging that you had forensic evidence that is able to point out someone in the case. But now you're saying, oh, we found a bunch of evidence in his grandma's car. What? She didn't drive her car for about 3 weeks? You see how stupid it sounds? When you really stand back and look at this and you heard it, this isn't just a story. It should make you go, that makes no sense. Because it doesn't. So they didn't notice there was a weapon in the car. They didn't notice that there was clothing in the car that may have been used in a situation. It didn't have to have blood on it. It could have just been clothing. Now you're going to check this clothing. Let me guess what's going to happen next. You're going to check something in the car, find gunpowder residue and a bunch of fingerprints. And these men are too dumb to realize that, hey, we just did a shooting. Maybe I should keep this in my grandma's car instead of me disposing of it. I don't think these men were that dumb. They were dumb. Don't get me wrong. Because of how they handled it, many things they could have did differently. But I don't think they were that dumb. Especially not Micheal Boatwright if he claimed innocence. Unless you're telling me the grandma was an accomplice to this situation. Which I couldn't see a grandma doing that. I know mines would never do that. And I can't see a lot of other people's doing that. So you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. So you're telling me in his grandmother's car, everything that you needed was found. I'm not believing that. And I know for a fact that you definitely have more work to do on the situation, because from what I'm starting to see and how the dots are connecting and evidence I received behind the scenes, you guys are... So if this is a ship and we're racing to see who sailed, you guys are still loading the ship up. while you're getting screamed at weeks later. You're not even setting sail yet. You're not even in the deep water to go traveling anywhere yet, because you don't even see the bigger picture. Everything around you has already happened time after time after time, and you can't even connect the dots because you can't see through the picture. I don't care if you say you get that there's more people. You don't even know how to connect it to the case, and that's kind of obvious by this time. So what I'm saying is, before you guys start releasing information like, oh, we figured this, oh, we found this, oh, this is the case, maybe you need to take your time, go back over the evidence, start from the beginning, and wonder to yourself, where was the passenger? What actually happened? Who was he? Why can't we find him? Don't you get it? You guys are so slow. I mean, hopefully you rock with Czar Rice Reserve, but at the end of the day, none of it's going to even implicate to the suspects. It's going to raise more questions. If you looking at the evidence and you're saying to yourself, we got the suspects, it's over, I'm sorry, something's wrong with you. You never deserve to be an investigator, because if you look into the scene and the evidence, these 4 suspects are mice compared to the larger plot that's behind everything. They're just specks on the dot. So you're sitting there as a kid tracing the same spot harder and harder and harder to find something when you're not seeing the bigger picture, when you're not even in touch with emotions and perspectives that were going on in the case. Yes, these guys today, you're really going to get a show. You're really going to get an understanding for what was going on. And that goes to all my viewers. It's really going to start to make sense. And that's going to be to all the things you guys are asking in the question about. But more questions are going to arise, just as they have for me. So stay tuned, rocking with your boy Czar Rice Reserve.